Everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pitstop. I am sitting with another amazing guest for you today. Our guest today is Debbie Longo. Debbie is an executive behavioral coach who helps business owners increase profits, reduce stress, and transform their lives with over 20 years of experience in personal and professional growth. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We have a lot of interesting ground to cover. The first thing we do like to cover on the show, though, is an icebreaker. And the question for you is, which cartoon character do you resonate with most, and why?
Snoopy, only because he's very mellow and he really likes people. He seems to be like very loving and caring. He's not like aggressive and different things.
I like that. Used to love Snoopy in the dating myself, but I used to love the color comics. You only used to get on weekends. Snoopy was in there. That was a while ago. Anyway, slipping into it rather easily here. How would you define procrastination, Debbie, and what does it mean to you personally?
Well, when I procrastinate, I want to know the first thing that I want to ask myself, which is probably the most important thing, is how much am I procrastinating? Am I procrastinating with one or two things or 10 things a day or as everything? Am I procrastinating with every single thing I do? And then I want to ask myself if it's a lot and I am is it affecting my life? Okay. Is it interfering with my daily life? Because if I have things to do, let's just give an example, those things might need to be done. And if I'm not doing them, what is going to happen if I don't do them as opposed to what will happen if I do them? Right. And then I want to say, what can I do to fix this problem? If I can identify it as a problem and as something that I need to change. If I think it's okay and there's nothing wrong and I like to keep doing this, then that's what I'm going to keep doing. If it's interfering with my life and I don't like it and I know I need to do something, then I'm going to seek help.
I like that. I like that approach. I've always said that the reason is one of the most important things. Besides the reason, though, Debbie, what's been? And again, we know that there's no 100% cure all or silver bullet, so to speak. But what's been your kind of go to besides asking those questions to overcome procrastination when it comes up?
So, one thing I want to do is take a piece of paper or a notebook and keep it with me. You can even do this on your phone. Now, I'm going to tell you a little trick. There is something that happens in a person's brain when they write with paper and pen as opposed to typing. So, what happens is the thoughts are energy, okay? They're not something physical. So, when I write with a paper and a pen, those thoughts rotate in my brain. So if I write one sentence, then I will think another sentence. It might not be automatic, it might not happen right away, but it'll happen pretty quickly. Or I might put one sentence down and then wait a minute or two, right? And then if I put the pen down, then I'm going to pick it up again and then I'll keep writing and writing. And when I type on a computer, that doesn't happen. Okay. So we don't know why that is, but that's just a fact. So if I use paper and pen and I write down, what am I procrastinating on today? What do I need to do that I'm not doing because of what X and X reason? Whether that's interfering with my life or not, it doesn't matter. So I'm writing that every day. I'm writing it for 5 days. And then the next week, I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to look at that paper that I wrote and I'm going to write each one down, each thing that I procrastinated on. And then I'm going to say, why did I procrastinate? I'll make 3 columns. I'm going to say what it was. Why did I procrastinate? And the third column is, what would have happened if I didn't procrastinate, because I know what would have happened, okay? Because procrastinating, not doing something is the opposite of of doing something, right? Okay? So, alls I have to do is just take that what I didn't do and just say the opposite of that. So, I'm gonna make those 3 columns.
Interesting. And that is to spur the, I guess, the thought processes. And, you know, I was thinking about what you said just now, and could be crazy. I don't know how you would test this, but I'm sure somebody and somebody smarter than me probably could. But when you're writing something on the computer, you are having contact with the computer and the screen sort of intermittently. Whereas with the pen and paper, I mean, either your hand or your finger or the pen is always connected to the paper. I mean, it sounds crazy, but maybe it's that, the theory of grounding, right? So, and again, I don't know how this flows with conductors and, not conductors, right? Material, because a plastic pen, right? So, but stand to reason that that would flow easier if there was an actual connection there. That might be something for someone out there in the metaphysics department to chime in on. If you can, you maybe comment down below. Maybe I'm just full of it. I don't know. It was a brain fart. We'll see where it goes. Anyway, sorry to sidetrack, Debbie. It was an interesting comment there for sure. What do you think is, working with companies and such as you have in the personal development space? What do you think is the biggest reason that we have for delaying things or putting them?
Okay, so when I write those columns, I'm gonna look at the first entry and I'm gonna read it from left to right? Just like I'm normally reading, right? And then I'm gonna say to myself, let's think about that day and what was the reason that I procrastinated on that. And I wanna be honest with myself. So maybe I was gonna clean my house and I got a phone call and I was on the phone with the person for an hour. And that was the hour that I was going to clean my house. Now, what would have been the opposite of that? I might have said, "Can I call you back? Because I have to clean my house now. This is the time that I set to clean my house, and this is the only time that I could do it. So can I call you back later?" Instead of being on the phone. But here's the thing. I want to take each thing separately, each entry that I put on that sheet, because for each entry, each thing that I procrastinated on, there's going to be a different reason. Okay. So I want to write down the reason I can. It doesn't matter whether I do or not, right? But because what I'm writing down is what the problem is, right? So we're going to find the solution. That's a process, is to find the solution. I'm just not going to say, okay, the next time I clean my house, I'm going to say I got to go. It doesn't work like that. Okay? That's not how it works with somebody who's gonna procrastinate, who's used to procrastinating for 20, 30, 40 years. All right? And so that's a process. So I'm writing down the the reason, right? N What I'm doing, right? And why I'm doing it. That's all I'm writing down, or I'm asking myself.
Now, as you're doing that list, does it help to mark things down and make it internal, so like emotional versus external? So or maybe that phone call could have been emotional. I don't know. But does it help to know if it was from internal or external when you're going through that?
Well, to me, that's a habit, is procrastinating or having a little bit extra discipline, self-discipline. So it really doesn't matter, but that is something that I do want to identify. And that's part of the process of coaching. Okay. So right now, this is what I'm identifying. Okay. And because I want to start very small, baby steps. And then I'm going to look at this sheet. This is up to me. It's not up to anybody else. Okay. I'm doing this. This is just an exercise. I listen to the podcast. I'm a listener. I listen to the podcast and I procrastinate and I'm curious about this. And Debbie said to do this. So I'm going to try it. It might be a little bit ridiculous. I'm not sure whether it's going to work or not, but I'm going to try it. What do I have to lose? Right. So then I'm going to look at the paper and I'm going to say, is there something that I need to fix here? Maybe I want to say, doesn't really matter. I might throw the paper in the garbage and just go on with my life. That's completely up to the person. But everything past that is pretty much going to be part of the coaching process. So then I want to say, maybe there's something that I need to fix, but maybe it's just going to be one thing. And that's okay. So I say, I pick one thing off that whole list. I got 10 things on the list in 2 days. I got 10 things. And I say, I just want to fix this one thing that I'm procrastinating on because maybe this one thing, maybe I get this phone call every day at 1 o'clock, and then I keep trying to clean my house at this time because I got to go to work after that. So I don't really have time to do it. And then every day I get a phone call. Okay. And now I can't do it. So I just want to focus on just fixing this one thing, and that's perfectly fine. So that's how it starts. So then we start the coaching, and if that appeals to them, because they might say, "It's not really doing anything for me. It's not really working," and that's fine. Or they might say, "This is something good, I can try it." It's okay, but I don't know what's gonna happen, but it might work out to be something good. So I wanna take the next step and I wanna see what happens, and that's really part of the coaching process. I'm not trying to sell anything, okay? I'm not trying to sell what I do, I'm merely explaining how I would coach somebody if they come to me with this issue.
Actually, on that subject, Debbie, how did you get into coaching? What made you get into the realm?
During my low point in my life. And then she said, "Do you know that you have some of these gifts that I have?" And I said, "No, I didn't know that." So she taught me how to bring these, because these are God given gifts, okay? How to bring them out and help people with them. And that was how it started, and then we worked together that whole entire time, and then she passed away in 2021 of cancer. So then I said, "Let me start my own business because I wanna help people." So I think, this would be something really good to help people with. So I started as life coaching and now I'm doing executive coaching, but I do all different types of coaching. It doesn't matter what it is because we're talking about the behavior. We could talk about procrastination and what the person did and what the other person did is fine. But the way it's going to be fixed is to change your thinking because the mind controls what I do. The mind controls whether I pick up that phone or not. The mind controls whether I tell that person, I have to clean my house. I have to go now. Okay. Can I call you tonight, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock after I get finished with dinner? The mind is going to control that. But I let my mind control me in a different way. And that is my mind controlling me. So I have to learn how to control my mind instead of my mind controlling me. And that is, I could think of a million different examples of this. This, this is not just with this. This is what we're talking about, right? Because this is what the show is about. But you could use this with anything.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What do you think was your biggest challenge when you first started out in your journey?
Right. So everything that I was going through, I was very negative and everything was the end of the world. And I didn't like anybody. I wasn't social. And I'm a very social person, but I just retreated inward to everything, to my entire social life, everything that I was doing. And that was really hurting me in a lot of different ways. And it was kind of crippling me for me to continue to live my life like a functioning normal person. That's how low that point was, it became.
Thank you for sharing that. So a quick question, how did you know, and this is not a, it's a question that we all ask, but some of us don't know. I mean, I can't really pinpoint it myself. When was the moment that you knew without a shadow of a doubt that you were on the right path with coaching?
While I was working with her and I started to open my mind, and she taught me in a lot of different ways, which is a lot of that I translate to the coaching that I do today, even though I put my own spin on it. Then I started to really these gifts and stuff really came out. Then I knew, because it's kind of my calling. So when that happens, then I know 100% that this is what I need to do. And there's no doubt in my mind. And that's usually the way that it is if something is a calling or comes natural, right? Like an actress, they'll say when they're very small, a child, maybe 3 or 4 years old, they'll say, "Mommy, I wanna become an actress one day." And the mother just laughs and says, "Okay, yeah, that's a good thing." And then what happens? Then they become like, like this famous actress. And if you look at the taken, a movie star or a famous person and look at their life on the internet, it could say that. There's a very good chance that it will say something similar to that. So they knew that they were gonna be a famous person when they were very young. Okay, so whether it doesn't matter when it comes out, but the point is they knew what their calling was. But I didn't know this until she kinda did know it, when I was small, but I wasn't gonna do anything about it then, because this is something that is a type of thing that has to be developed, and now when she taught me, then I remembered everything and I knew that this was what I should be doing, what I had to be doing.
It's true though that and that comes up with procrastination too, right? We have our core values and we know kind of what we should be doing, but we get into what we call soul sucking jobs because we're doing things that just don't align with us. But, this happens so much. I mean, do you think that this is because we don't trust ourselves? Or do you think this is because we're just bombarded so much by society telling us what we should do that we just start to believe it?
Right. So that's a good point, because the outside forces, whether it's society or people influencing me, friends, family, people I work with, I have a tendency, and to me, this is human nature in a way. Okay. I have a tendency to look at them, maybe follow them, maybe use them as a mentor. But who do I follow? That's the question, because there's all different people, right? Some people are negative, some people are positive. Some people have an ulterior motive. Some people do things out of the goodness of their heart. Some people want things in return every time I ask them for a favor. They say, "Oh, yeah, I'll do it for you," and they act like they do, but then, they always want something in return, right? So, who do I look up to as a mentor, right? And how do I know? Well, if I don't know what I'm doing, right, then I'm gonna look for somebody to help me because I don't know what I'm doing, right? So then how would I know? So there's a lot of different ways that I could find out, but the best way is for me to know, because if I want to go to an industry and I just got out of school, I want to start working, and I want to use the boss is going to help me learn. I'm going to get a job, right? And the boss is going to help me learn this industry, everything I learned in school, they're going to help me learn hands on. So, what type of boss would do that? Well, I don't know. So I would just take the job, right? And then just see what happens, okay? But I wanna know before I take that, because there's more than one interview, right, that I could go on. I could go on 5 interviews, and then I say, "Well, they're all good. They all pay the same. It's all the same position. So which one should I take?" What am I gonna do? How am I gonna make that determination? I wanna know in my brain, because you know what's gonna happen? They might convince me of something. One might be a few dollars more. Well, I'm not sure about this one, but I'll just take this because it's a few dollars more. Okay. Well, that might not necessarily be the reason. I might go through 4 or 5 jobs. I'm just using jobs as an example. You could take insert anything you want. Okay. You could take this scenario that I'm giving and insert anything you want. Doesn't matter. So I could go through 4 or 5 jobs and then I can say, none of these worked. So what happened? How come I went through these jobs and it didn't work out and they took advantage of me and there was a lot of things that happened in the job and I just wound up quitting because I didn't like working there. So what happened? And I don't know what happened unless I get certain training, specific training just for this one thing, right? In order for me to know, nobody's telling me. I am knowing in my heart, in my soul, inside my body, all the way deep in my body. I am knowing which job to pick before anything, before I take a job, before I try anything, because I don't want to act on a whim, because then I'm going to start to get really negative, and then I might just quit the industry and forget about the school and everything. And I can give you tons of examples of people that I know that this has happened to.
One of the things that you mentioned is that we tend to bring up negative things. Now, I've got my own theories on this and other people, but I'd like to hear your take on it. What do you think makes us focus so much on the negative? Like you said, like we get in the job and we just go out there and focus on all that negative stuff.
Well, unfortunately, this is a negative world. I drive in the car, somebody cuts me off, I get upset, I almost get into a car accident. I go to the supermarket, there's 2 people in front of me yelling and screaming. They're fighting about, who was online first. So everywhere I go, there's negativity. So I am not negative. It was not our nature to be this way, but we just become this way as we grow up. And there's nothing that we can really do about that fact, right? That everybody is negative and this is a negative world. That's just a fact. And I don't know if that will ever change because you would have to change, you would have to change every single person, right? And, that's most likely not going to happen, but I want to change myself. So I need to regenerate myself. Every time I'm hit with something negative, I regenerate myself to become positive. And there's a lot of ways, and this is one thing that I teach also. There's tons of ways to do this. I'm going to tell you one little trick. Every time I hear something negative or somebody says something negative to me or something I don't like, something that I don't want near me, that I know is not good for me, in my brain, I say cancel to myself. Cancel, cancel. Somebody yells at me, cancel, cancel. Somebody says somebody's trying to control and manipulate me. They say, I want to do this. I don't care what you say. You want to do this, but I want to do this. Cancel, cancel. Okay. Anything is garbage. I consider it garbage. I don't want it. And that will cancel out the negative. Now I want to regenerate and become positive, right? Because that's not going to be 100%. That's not the complete solution. So what one way that I could become positive is to do the opposite of the negative thing, okay, of the negativity. So if I say to myself, I don't want to go to work today because of I don't feel good. Well, what's wrong with me? Do I have a little stomach? My stomach hurts a little bit. Well, let's take some medicine and go to work. And then I'll ask my boss that, if I don't feel good, maybe I could leave early. At least I'm trying to go to work. Okay. Or somebody says I'm ugly, then I would say I'm pretty. Somebody says I'm not capable of doing something, then I would say that thing, and then I would say, I'm capable of doing it, whatever it is. Okay. So I'm taking that thing, whatever the situation is, or the statement, or anything, I'm taking that and I'm turning it in an opposite direction. I'm turning it into into a positive. So we call that the different ends of the spectrum. Okay, because there's always each end, and I'm either going to one end or not. So you start in the middle, right? Make like a little scale, and then both ends, one is negative, one's positive. So I'm either going towards the negative or towards the positive with everything I do all the time.
When you're talking about the both ends of the spectrum, the positive and the negative, what do you do with, situations where, you know, no matter what you no matter what you spin on it, it's kinda like, no matter how much you wrap up a turd sandwich, it's still a turd sandwich? What do you do in those times when when you're trying to move that needle, but you can't really go to positive, but, I mean, you should be able to go neutral at least, right?
If I This all is going to depend on how I want to think about it. Because I might say, because what is going to control what I do is how I think, how my mind operates. So I might say, I this person said this to me, or this person wants me to do this, and I just can't think about the positive side. I have to, it's only rational to my brain just to do what's negative because that's what makes sense. Or I might say, I don't think that's negative. Okay. So this is what we call perception. Because if I say, your shirt is pink, you might say, no, it's not, it's beige. Okay. That that is only perception because first of all, we're on a computer. Okay, and the light is different, and if I go that's why I normally don't buy clothes on through the internet, okay, because a lot of times the color is gonna be different, okay? Just a little tip. But the point is that it's either gonna make sense to me or it's not, and that is something that I wanna learn how to do. That's if I want to learn it. So if I think that it's okay, and it makes sense to do the negative, right? And it doesn't make sense for me to try to look in another way, in another form of thinking, then that's okay. So it's kind of like acting on blind faith, but I really want to say to myself, that's why the first thing I want to say is this procrastinating or negative thinking or whatever I'm doing, is that controlling my life? Is that preventing me from completing my daily activities?
I really like that, the way that you frame that up. Just looking at everything that you've done and everything to come. We had a little bit of a discussion about this before in the green room, but where do you see yourself and your goals in the next 5 years?
Well, the business is going to grow. That I'm sure of. When that's gonna happen and how that's gonna happen is not really up to me. I'm putting in the footwork and I'm doing what I know to do now. What's gonna come in the future, maybe, somebody will, listen to a podcast that I have and, like me and introduce me to people or, whatever's gonna happen, right? I don't know what that's gonna be, and I don't know how long that's gonna happen and when, but I do have some visions, I have goals, things that I want to accomplish, and I know these things will happen, but the question is when and how. So I'm putting in the footwork now that I know, and it will work out eventually.
I love how you mentioned that, like, you don't know the when or the how. What's funny is a lot of us, and maybe give me your feelings on this. When we feel stuck, when we feel most like we don't know what to do, we're always asking ourselves, how can we do this? But even Steve Jobs said that you can't know the how until it's already happened. So is that kind of the reframe you're thinking?
Well, let's think, how does my brain work? First, I have a thought, and then I act on it. I'm making the decision to act on it because not every thought I have, I act on, right? If I want to stab my neighbor, if if something happens and I'm in a fight with my neighbor and I want to do something bad to him, am I going to do it? I know that if I do it, I'm going to go to jail, right? Do I really want to go to jail? Okay. So the rest of that is beyond those 2 things is kind of just my decision to make. So the how and the why, I might know, I might not know. I might wanna figure it out. I might wanna think about it, or if it's something that I don't wanna continue to think about, then I'm just gonna stop. But if I go through the process where I wanna find out the how and the why, then that's gonna come from thinking about it, trying to get it out of my brain. So maybe might wanna ask a few people, maybe I'm not sure, maybe I've experienced this in the past. Maybe I can kinda figure it out on my own, right? Maybe I could just try, a few different things and see what happens, okay? So these things are kinda questionable, whether I wanna go farther than thinking about it and doing the action.
Love that. Love that that range of thinking there. Debbie, it's been a really great conversation. I could go on for another little bit, but I know that everybody's got things they got to be doing. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked but didn't ask, or anything you feel that we should have covered that we didn't cover?
If somebody is listening to this podcast and they can identify with just one small thing that we said, my suggestion would be to try it because a lot of things that I explained are things that you can do. Even a thinking activity, that's doing. Okay. It might not be physically doing, but you're thinking, you're in the process of making a decision. So if it sounds appealing and it sounds like something that you want to try it on your own and see what happens. And then think to yourself, do you want to go farther than this? Is this becoming an issue? Is it affecting my life? Is it becoming a problem? Is it something that I really want to change? And you could take that would be a step that, like a coach or me or somebody would tell you to do in the very beginning. But you could take that extra step, that jump step, the first step, and do it on your own, and then you can make that determination, and that would be something very easy to do. And that's one of the reasons why I do these podcasts, because I want to ask people these types of questions so they could have a thinking exercise on their own, because this is how it's going to happen. I don't want to ask somebody because then I'm getting somebody else's opinion, and this is a thought process that comes from me only.
Such a powerful, powerful statement. And, to our listeners, please, if you missed it, rewind, watch it again, watch it a couple of times, take notes. And just before we go, Debbie, what's the best way that our listeners can reach out to you?
I have a website, lifeinbloomny.net. I have YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, which I'm active on. You can just put my name in, Debbie Longo. We'll have the contact information also, hopefully, on this podcast somewhere. And that would be probably the easiest way. The easiest way really would be the website, because I have my information, my email and my phone number on there. And anybody is welcome to email me or call me or contact me any way that they want. That's perfectly fine, because that's the first step, is to recognize you need help and then you make the contact.
Excellent. And to our listeners, don't worry, we are going to have that in the show notes for you so that you'll be able to get it really easily. Once again, Debbie, thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing your insights. And to all our listeners, thank you once again for tuning in. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation and inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.
Thank you for having me on the show.